So it's been a little bit since our last discussion about Battlefield 6 and the details we've learned recently from recent leaks, data mines, and playtests. Today we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of details surrounding the upcoming game, whenever it may be launching, whether later this year or early next. We're not entirely sure, but we keep learning more and more as Battlefield Labs continues to bring more and more players into the early playtest. So drop your thoughts, drop a like, and make sure to subscribe for more Battlefield content and coverage. Before we get into it, we need to preface this discussion with the usual with every leak video. The items that have leaked that we're talking about in this video are still intellectual property of EA, DICE, and any affiliated party with the development of the game. While it seems almost random what gets taken down and what doesn't, I've seen some of the same posts get taken down on one platform but not another. To avoid any potential copyright strikes and takedown orders that would completely wipe our discussion off the platform, every relevant item will be linked in the description below, but not in video out of an abundance of caution. An extra added step, so I do apologize for that, but respectfully, I'd also like to protect the platform we've built here on the channel. So that said, let's talk about, firstly, some data mined content, starting with weaponry. This comes at a more comprehensive pull from prominent leaker Temporal. For those that have been around the Battlefield space, you might recognize that name a bit. For those that are new here, he's one of the high-profile data miners within the scene. For this, though, he ended up giving us a much more comprehensive list of the weapons that we can expect, coming within Battlefield 6 of the assault rifle category of the 6P67 Cord, the ACE-32, the G36, the G3A4, the HK433, the L85A3, the SCAR-L, and the Tavor 7, the carbines of the AK205, the HK417A2, the M4A1, the MSBS Grot B, the QBZ192, the SCAR-SC, the SG553R, and the XM7. Your PDW and SMG weapons are the APC-10, MP5 MLI, MP7A2, MPX, P90, UMP40, and the Vector. Your LMGs, you'll have the M240L, the M27 IAR, the M249, the M60E6, MG4, RPKM, Ultimax 100, and the XM250. Your bolt actions, you have the M2010, the MRAD, and the SV98M. The DMRs, you have the M39 EMR, the SVCH, and the SVDM. Your shotguns, you have the 18.5 KSK, the 590A1, the KSG-12, and the M1014, with secondaries rounding everything out of the 5.7 Mark III, G22, M18, M327 TRR8, M45A1, and the Raging Hunter. Now, assuming all of these come to the game, that's a lot of stuff to look forward to. Though, I will say there's a very high probability that might not be the case. Even as Temporal points out, this is not a final list here. The client that we have right now for Battlefield Labs is subject to change. Some of these things could be leftover legacy game code. Some weapons may not make the cut. Some weapons may be added in on top of this to either replace or be in addition to this list. Some of this may be for launch with seasonal content included in this list. There's just a lot of variables that right now, so far out from the launch of the game and a public version of that game with everything being finalized, that we don't quite know. But I mean, if it is, 47 weapons is a pretty healthy number. By comparison, the last three titles, 2042 had 22 weapons exclusively for 2042, with 57 more coming in Portal, so that's something that is kind of a schism there. You had 37 weapons at launch in Battlefield 5, and Battlefield 1 had 48 weapons. So a decent number for sure. Beyond that, Temporal also detailed a bit about the fighter and attack jets in the game files, where your fighter role, you have the F-22 and the Su-57. Those coming with the M61 Vulcan 20mm primary weapon, with the AIM-9X Sidewinder as the secondaries, with flares and the GBU-39 as your equipment. Now, your attack jets, that was the F-16 and the JAS-39, with, again, the M61 Vulcan, but instead as secondary weapons, the Hydra 70 HE and the AGM-65 Maverick, with flares and the Mark 82 Air for your equipment. So pretty cool to see those already detailed out here at this, and of course, nice to see some of the additional vehicle play accounted for. But strangely, we also ended up learning from him a little bit about, and this is going to be a slight deviation from just the Battlefield 6 multiplayer experience we're talking about, but still staying under the umbrella of what he brought to the table, some Battle Royale components that he had found for the upcoming game. That being, of course, a largely rumored thing right now with Battlefield 6, that it's going to have a free-to-play Battle Royale competing with the likes of Warzone, Apex Legends, Fortnite perhaps, and other games alike, where it perhaps may be a late entry to the Battle Royale genre, but hopefully could be a very good one. The details he released of this were some basic things, but things that were mentioned in the game files of solos, duos, trios, and squads that players will infill via the MH-47 Chinook. You have parachuting and cutting parachute mechanics. You have armor, both hard and soft, so perhaps different weighted levels of what kind of protection you end up having. The free-to-play component obviously being something that's mentioned here. Missions, which could be like your contracts comparable to Warzone. Call-ins, perhaps comparable to streaks in Warzone, loot rarity, upgrade kits and weapon upgrades, shrinking circles, obviously that's kind of a given with a battle royale, stated as probably fire though associated with that, so kind of think like you had Firestorm from Battlefield 5, and then second chance and respawn mechanics, something that since Warzone has launched, we ended up seeing this become a more mainstream feature within battle royales introduced post that point. And the final bit of details was not a whole ton of reference data, but mentioned points of interest of downtown, Main Street, Marina, military base, military R&D, military storage, and tech center for this map that will eventually be the Battle Royale map. So all of these, again, are standard items, but the fact that they're mentioned in the game files is the interesting part. Let's get back to Battlefield 6's multiplayer, though. This, not necessarily coming from Temporal now, but other data mines. We've learned about 11 multiplayer maps with one Battle Royale map here in the game files right now. Again, as we mentioned, this doesn't mean this is the final amount of maps. There could be more, there could be less, but in the game files right now, we have Badlands, Tungsten, which appears to be set in Tajikistan, Outskirts, Limestone, Glacier, Eastwood, which looks to be set in Hollywood, Dumbo, which looks to be Brooklyn, underneath the Brooklyn Bridge there, Capstone, also set in Tajikistan, Battery, which is your Gibraltar map, Aftermath, which again looks to be Brooklyn somewhere, and Abbasid, which is in Egypt, and that one that we saw a bunch of footage on already, with the map Granite being the code name for the BR map. Beyond that, data mined information also provided insight into what could be a test range, something that's called the Proving Ground, with listed attributes for a weapon range, vehicle depot, airstrip, and obstacle course. So something you could probably play around with, getting warmed up a little bit with your aim, learning recoil patterns, mastering some vehicles, both land and air. So that'd be pretty awesome to see, and I kind of think that's a great addition to any shooter, but especially one that looks to be introducing so much to the guns this year as Battlefield. I think that'd be a great addition here. There was also leaked weapon mastery tiers and stickers. You have T5 to T1 mastery types, like from Battlefield 2042, just an additional grind to work towards. I don't think that really adds too much or takes away from an experience, but it's just something nice, I think, to have. One thing that was mentioned was server browser history and favorites, and that's something that I think immediately excited a lot of people when this was found, because obviously there's a history to this within Battlefield, but my only worry is this assumption kind of maybe jumps the gun, and that maybe this is just for Portal 2.0, that a server system is going to be there for that, but matchmaking is going to work how we see within 2042. While it's still way too early to know, that's my sort of reluctant take on that. I don't want to jump right into, hell yeah, server browsers coming back, because we just don't know at the moment. Now, additionally, a dubbed Battlefield Pro was data mined that appears to be a subscription service similar to what we've seen in other games. Fortnite's Crew, the Rainbow Six memberships, Black Cell to a degree in COD in build, but that doesn't have an auto-renew component to it that makes it like a true subscription service. But this will apparently include access to the Premium Battle Pass with extra content, 6 exclusive unlocks for instant use, 10% boost to Battle Pass XP, persistent portal server hosting, 20 tier skips for the Battle Pass, exclusive bonus paths for additional exclusive content released at a later point in the season, Battlefield Pro challenges, which appear to be a vault of additional and existing exclusive cosmetic challenges that can be accessed in that season or from prior seasons, and finally, the ability to listen to the Pro radio station. Not sure if that's indicative of like vehicle radio stations while driving around or what, but it's a bonus of it. Now, this in particular has been creating a bit of a stir in the community from what I've seen, and I understand the frustration surrounding this, but at the same time, I also wasn't expecting really anything different. I mean, we knew it was way too early on when we saw gameplay leaks that monetization, that stuff wasn't attached to the in-game things. As much as I want this game to be good, I also had zero anticipation that EA would be like, we're gonna break away from every industry model that calls for making money. It would have been nice to see for sure, but I had zero expectations of that. I mean, do we know who we're dealing with here? And for me personally, most of this stuff is standard stuff that I can ignore. Like if I'm playing, I'll be completing the battle pass all the same. The only things that I think have genuine value are the persistent portal server hosting, which is definitely a bummer and I'm not a fan of. That's locked behind that paywall, and the challenge sets that as a completionist, that's something that I'll have to wrestle with if it's worth the payment of that, because I do love 100%ing things and I do love earning cosmetics for those challenges. Worst case, nothing changes and it's definitely something to be frustrated about that I totally get, but best case, this came out so early that maybe feedback and fan criticism can be something that makes this get adjusted. I still firmly believe that at this point of all the labs tests, there's zero chance that they thought the general public, likely skipping over warnings and everything in game if no NDAs were explicitly signed, that they'd keep quiet on these kind of things. So I think that these leaks are intentional to a degree, but maybe that's just me. The final thing that I want to touch on here is something that's a little bit interesting that is still up in the air. Like, I don't think that it's been confirmed or denied just yet, but apparently about 20 images of concept art were leaked here from an unnamed source. This is possible that it's legit, but there's also no indication if this is real or not. Personally, whenever this kind of stuff happens, whenever it's like an anonymous leak like this, I'm skeptical of AI related art because it's pretty simple to end up just putting in a prompt and getting something out that you could be like, hey, this is new concept art for the game that's unreleased. But what amazes me with this stuff that, again, linked down below, just out of an abundance of caution, is the level of detail in the smaller things, like the weaponry and small minor things like street signs. If it was AI art, that stuff would usually be all sorts of skewed and messed up. Like, you'd absolutely see that it's actually gibberish if you try and read a street name. A lot of the times, the gun design or the fingers would be messed up on the concept art if it was AI. The stuff that leaked doesn't look like this, which makes me think that, okay, either it is an insanely well-polished piece of AI art or could be very much so legit. But the tone of the artwork is what I think is the most important here at this. Personally, I think it looks great. But what a lot of people also like is that it's a gritty, more milsim than anything else feeling to it. It's a more down to the basics of Battlefield and what that conflict has on offer. And it's something that takes it to a more familiar place. You have Hollywood, you have Brooklyn, which for a lot of the player base here is probably recognizable to you, kind of hitting home a little bit here with this. Obviously, cosmetics are the big schism right now within any FPS game, I feel like. I'd be super happy to see something like this, though, more grounded and real feeling. Like a gritty combat game with this, but with the polished mechanics of a Battlefield or of a Call of Duty, for example. Something like that, that while there are plenty of indie games out there that are trying to nail this sort of milsim aspect, but not being a hardcore tactical shooter, those types of things often lack the polish that these larger games do. So I love the tone of this if this does translate one-to-one to the full game, and I feel like that alone could pick up a lot of steam from other FPS communities. Kind of looking at Call of Duty, especially with this. Like, I've seen so many comments over the past couple of months that the cosmetics are just a huge turnoff to a lot of players. Now again, while grand scheme of things, I don't personally think that I care all that much. I totally understand where people are coming from with this. But anyways, that is a few of the recent Battlefield 6, Battlefield 2025 leaks, whatever we end up seeing this called, or whatever we want to address it as right now. Those are some of the new leaks as of recent weeks. Just wanted to fill you guys in and keep you in the loop with the development here and what we learn as of new information coming out. Speaking of new information, again, be on the lookout. There are likely going to be additional leaks coming today because there is that newest labs test that is currently slated to happen around when this video goes live, either shortly before, shortly after, maybe right on the nose. Who knows? But more information will be coming out likely, so if that's the case, we'll be covering that all in detail as of next week sometime. For now, though, that's where we're going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like anything in particular out of these leaks, dislike it, whatever the case, drop your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. Of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Battlefield 6 and other FPS content. I'd love to have in the community. For now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.